Welcome to Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. Episode 24, This Side of Paradise.
In this week's episode, the crew of the Enterprise are sent to investigate a colony believed to have been exposed to fatal levels of Berthold rays, expecting to find nobody alive. To their surprise, not only are the colonists alive, they're thriving. As the ship's crew begins deserting to join the idyllic community, Kirk must find a way to get through to his first officer. But can he do it? Or will he be too late?
Mr. Spock is much stronger than the ordinary human being. Aroused, his great physical strength would kill.
Good evening, Ian. When you're aroused, how lethal are you?
It would really depend on how aroused I was.
Have you been known to?
There's no records at this stage or evidence.
What do you think of this week's episode? You should ask me that, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll answer that.
What did you think of this week's episode, Jenny?
I thought it was a good episode. I thought it was fun. I thought McCoy was quite funny this week, and it was good to see the character development, a greater deal of insight into what makes Spock tick.
Yeah. I mean, when I spoke to you earlier in the week, you'd only watched the first 15 minutes and you weren't quite as enamoured, so obviously it picked up for you.
Yeah.
It starts off quite similarly to the Return of the Archons,
It
with
does.
a sort of idyllic community behaving slightly unusually, not quite as unusually as the Archons, obviously.
Yeah, they didn't speak in that strange meter.
That's true, and they weren't wearing clothes from ye olde days.
No. Although McCoy ends up talking in.
Yeah, I don't know what that was about. He's a man who reacts in strange ways to unanticipated stimuli.
Clearly.
What did you think of Sandoval as a leader? You'd like to rate leaders, don't you?
There wasn't that much leadership required because of the influence that they were under, I don't think. I think they're all perfectly sort of happy with their lot.
Maybe the happiest we've seen Spock since they took away his phaser rifle.
Yeah, quite possibly.
I think he's still pining for it.
What have you been up to anyway, Ian? Anything interesting?
Not a huge amount, to be
Enjoying the
honest.
snooker?
You're dating our podcast. I suppose it could be any year.
Any year, yeah.
It could be any year. I
Yeah,
always enjoy the snooker.
Yeah, a couple, 2 or 3 weeks off it. Missed it. It was delayed because of the old COVID.
It's actually it's kind of a sport overflow at the moment. You've got golf majors, you've got snooker world championships, you've got football tournaments ending and starting, and it's a cornucopia of delights.
It is. I like nothing better than that sort of 2 or 3 weeks of the Crucible. You get in from work, you just lie back on the couch and watch 4 or 5 hours of. I like a good bit of safety play as well.
You should do a snooker podcast one year.
There are a few out there.
Are there?
They're quite good, yeah.
I can't imagine anything less interesting.
That's all right.
Is it?
Snooker scene, yeah, with Dave Hendon.
Oh, okay.
Listen to that one sometimes.
Well, they should give us a shout out now that we've
They should.
promoted them. I'm sure there'll be a huge cross section of our audience there. Also snooker aficionados. Any other pub games that you enjoy?
Watching or playing?
Watching on the television for hours.
Darts, not so much. I mean, I'm not a big darts fan, but I like it around about Christmas time. The two, the PDC certainly, and used to watch the BDO.
Makes
Now
you
it's-
feel seasonal.
Yeah, it's a tradition now. It's good to watch. I like playing a bit of pool.
This might be the most sports talk on a Star Trek podcast ever.
Yeah, those nerds.
Okay.
And saying it's not the most athletic pursuits we're looking at, is it? So they might be okay. Throwing things and working at angles, using a bit of trigonometry, I suppose.
Yeah, you could be fine.
Yeah.
I think that there's a very small crossover audience, so I think we're going to find we've lost everybody. Skip. There's some-
And also the guy, like comic book guy from The Simpsons, he looks like a darts player. He's got the build of a darts player.
I'm sure he is.
Yeah,
Probably is a
it's
darts player.
Geeky type of thing, isn't it?
He's not real. It's based on a stereotype that's offensive to many people.
Is it?
That's probably
Okay.
offensive to me.
Oh, I also got, last night I bought a ticket for the Wrath of Khan and William Shatner.
He's coming back. He's
coming
defying
back,
the
yes.
pandemic.
I don't need to get down to London this time. He's playing Edinburgh, so it's not until next year, but I thought I'd get a ticket. It's nearly sold out.
What
got
venue is he going?
Usher Hall. Or Usher Halls? Hall? I can't remember.
No, it's an appropriate venue.
Yeah.
Shall we get on with actually talking about this episode?
Okay, let's crack on. Where do we start?
We're on the bridge of the Enterprise heading to Omicron Ceti 3.
From now on, we'll call it Omicron, I think, for brevity.
I don't think we need to mention the name of it again.
Do we not? The planet?
Now, yeah.
Okay. It looks apparently like Earth, and Kirk orders them to enter a standard orbit.
Yeah, there's no response to their attempts to communicate, which is a step forward from last week when they were told to get lost.
Spock, however, tells Kirk that the likely chances of survival of the 150 men, women and children on this agricultural colony are...
Zero.
Yeah.
They're all dead. My understanding of the situation is that when they went to this planet, the effective Berthold rays were not fully understood, but it's now known that it is fatal to humans and they're all dead.
Yeah, it can cause their tissue to disintegrate.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bugger.
When was the last time you saw a disintegrated tissue?
Not that long ago.
Okay. However, these rays, the ill effects are not immediate, and therefore a landing party can beam down. So Kirk orders 5 others to accompany him, including McCoy and a biologist.
Botanist.
A botanist, that what it was, yeah. Okay.
They must have a new botanist because it's no longer Sulu. Remember back at the start?
But he was tending his plants in his little man cave.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's not him anymore. He must have had a promotion.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's a navigator, isn't he?
That's it. So presumably that's now his full-time job.
Yeah, maybe the plants were just a hobby.
It could have been, but he's not the guy.
He's not.
There's another botanist.
Yeah.
In fact, I think they used LaSalle as the botanist, who was in the Square of Gothos.
Stop saying botanist. I keep thinking of a botanist.
A lobotomist.
No, just a bottomist. Someone who's right into their bottoms.
I don't think that's what you call those people.
Oh.
Preverts. Down on the surface, it's basically a farming community, I think they've reached.
Yes, there's a settlement, and there also seems to be stables. However, it appears empty of life, as Kirk laments another dream that has failed.
Laments is the word that I put down as well.
Is it?
But as he does so, there's a surprise for everybody.
Yeah, there's a cheery voice from behind him which refutes this
Yes, he
assumption.
says that reports of his death have been greatly exaggerated.
So they turn to phase 3, overall wearing men who welcome them, and the speaker introduces himself as...
Elias Sandoval. Dun dun dun.
Credits, Captain's Log 3417.3, and it's just a summary of what we have discussed.
Yes, well, and Kirk acknowledging that their assumptions were wrong.
Clearly.
Evidently, yes. But then we've had this before. Remember with Nurse Chapel's fiancé?
Yes.
They thought he was dead.
100% certain to be dead.
Turned out he was dead, but not initially.
No.
They killed him.
They did.
Kind of, the robot version. We all remember. Let's move on.
We do.
Sandoval says the reason they weren't in contact is that their radio was broken, and they've got no one there who knows how to fix a radio.
Yeah, they've not seen any outsiders for 4 years.
He offers them a tour and wanders off.
And a sarcastically accurate McCoy tells Kirk that the man looks alive, as far as he can tell, but Spock confirms that from his tricorder readings, the place is being bombarded by these Berthold rays. Berthold, what is it?
Whatever you prefer.
Okay, these rays. And that they will only be safe for around 1 week.
Yes, so yeah, their science was correct. There are Berthold rays, they are being affected, and he doesn't have an explanation for the survival of the colonists.
No. Yeah, Sulu, I think he asks if maybe they are not alive.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
But McCoy counters quickly and reminds Kirk that when he shook hands with Elias, his hand was warm. But how would McCoy know this?
He presumes Kirk would have reacted if it wasn't, I guess. But then it's good to know that we get back to handshaking in the future.
No, it's not good to know at all.
It's not good. No, I'm not looking forward to that.
It's always been a filthy habit.
It's going to be really awkward, isn't it? How do we start to reintroduce that to society?
We won't. I think this is a time that it'll die out.
I hope so.
Yeah, it's one of the benefits of it.
It's a filthy habit.
Do not unnecessarily touch each other.
It's this sort of display of machismo. Folk try to out-strength each other in their handshakes.
Is that what you do, yeah?
No, but people do.
Do they? So, Kirk decides anyway that he wants to go and get some answers, and we head to a farmhouse.
Yes, Sandoval leads them indoors and confirms that there are, I think he says 45 colonists.
Yeah, on across 2 other settlements.
So they're down a bit from the 150 they started with.
Yeah.
That's not really referred to again.
It's not, that's a good point. Are we to assume that perhaps some died before they...
Oh, possibly. Yeah, before they realised the benefits of the...
Unless we've just misunderstood it and there's 45 people in each, which would be near enough 150.
Yeah, maybe it's that. Yeah. Or 45 on the other camps and 100 or so on their main camp.
Yeah, but you didn't really see that many people in this camp, did
But
you?
you never do, it's always off camera. Same as there's 500 people in the Enterprise and we'll ever see 6 or 5 if they can't afford Scotty that week. Like this week.
No, in fact, they go on immediately to explain what's happened.
Okay.
They say they've split up because they don't want to suffer disease like they previously had.
Was that not just to the crops?
Maybe.
Anyway. Layla, she shows up and she's introduced and seems to recognise Spock.
Yeah, it's odd this, because we don't really, we do get into a bit more depth in terms of exploring this relationship, but we don't find out more about how and why they were.
No, but it's a
together.
storyline that might get introduced in the new series that's coming up with Pike and Spock and so on the Enterprise.
Right.
It starts in a couple of years or a year.
Okay. Yeah, she's a young blonde, and as you noted, there's an obvious connection between herself and Spock.
I think there's a flicker of recognition on Spock's face as well, is there not?
Yes. Yeah. She is introduced as a botanist, and I think she admits that Spock and her have met before.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a confession. It's just an observation or a recollection.
Mm-hmm.
Sandoval is told by Kirk at this point that there's a mission to be carried out, and he promises full cooperation. He explains to Kirk that there's a simple philosophy to life on the planet.
What's that?
Just a less complicated way of being.
Sounds good.
Does it? Sounds dull.
Well, see, I've got my issues with how things progress here. And there is a touch of the sort of Starfleet or the Enterprise and through Kirk, again, landing somewhere and deciding to change how they operate. Now, you can argue in this case there might be very good reasons, but
Yeah.
it's all very severe, and it's all there's no discussion. There's no, if you are going to make these changes to a civilization, do it gradually. There's no, they've been there for 4 years.
Yeah, and they're under the effect of a plant.
We'll get to that.
Outside the farmhouse by the barn, Sulu and Kelowitz, you've seen him before, are working as a pair.
Sulu is his usual sort of casual self, as he admits to Kelowitz that he's not sure what they're looking for, as he sits right beside a bright pink flower.
Knowing that he is a keen botanist as well.
Yeah.
It's a bit strange that he wouldn't know what he's looking for.
Well, it stands out, isn't it? There is quite barren.
Maybe he's just an expert in houseplants.
Could be. Kelowitz then opens an empty barn, and the two of them realise that they haven't seen any animals at all.
Yeah, the barn's just being used for storage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that plant, the unusual looking plant, actually did a double take itself when Sulu said that.
You think, yeah? Do you notice that?
It looked that way.
Okay.
It's like, I'm right here, guys.
I can hear you. Inside the farmhouse, Layla tells Elias about her relationship with Spock, which, according to her, is predetermined.
You've known the Vulcanian.
On Earth, 6 years ago.
Did you love him?
If I did, it was important only to myself.
How did he feel?
Mr. Spock's feelings were never expressed to me. It is said he has none to give.
Would you like him to stay with us now? To be as one of us?
There is no choice, Elias. He will stay.
I think that Spock's at it.
You think so?
Yeah. He's had a one-night stand, a fling with Layla in the past, and she says, okay, so are we now a wee boyfriend-girlfriend? Oh, no, I
Don't have emotions.
I don't have emotions.
He's had to stick with it now for the last 6 years. Every week, I say this is one of the last times that they use the term Vulcanian, and then it happens again.
Yeah, you're talking rubbish, aren't you?
What I think is going to happen is at some point they get a software upgrade for their universal translators, and we realise that he's been saying Vulcan
Yeah,
all
that'll prove
along.
you right, of course.
Yeah.
So they met 6 years ago, as we heard in the clip there. And
Yeah.
she seems a bit stalkerish.
She's going to make him stay.
Yeah.
That's a bit harsh.
Meanwhile, McCoy has been taking some readings of the workers and admits to Kirk that of all the men that he's looked at, they are in perfect condition.
Emphasis on the perfect.
And emphasis on men. He didn't say... So I thought at first, well, maybe it's something to do with the women or the kids.
Right.
You know, like in... what was the one with the little brats?
Oh, yes, Miri.
Mary, yes.
Yeah. No, I don't. I presume he's just checking the folk who've been working first. And obviously it's a patriarchal society here on the colony.
Sure. Spock comes through from outside, where he supports Sulu's observation that there is not any sign of life, but he's going to continue to investigate this.
He's had inconclusive results from his tricorder.
Yeah.
McCoy finds this lack of animal life curious, and he wants to see the original medical records from the colonists' mission.
Yes.
Kirk's got them on a handy floppy disk.
Yeah, he anticipated that, didn't he? He's in his little 3.5-inch floppy.
And he hands it over.
Was it 3 point? Was that what it was? 3.5 inch?
3.25? No, 3.5. Yeah, if he had 5.25, and then it went down to 3.5.
You're a lucky man.
Depending on the weather.
Yeah.
Sandoval shows up at this point. He's going to give them that tour that he promised, but McCoy declines as he has work to do.
But he does compliment them on their physical conditions, and I think Elias responds, yeah, you'll find no weaklings here.
Yeah, I think McCoy's worried he'll be out of a job if he has to treat people like this any longer.
Yeah. We're in a field now where Elias is showing Kirk a handful of soil and claims it to be the secret. They have a perfect climate which provides all that they need.
Lieutenant Leslie shows up with a biology report, and I think this might be the last time he speaks in the series, although he appears loads more times.
You think that?
Yeah, one.
You can't remember. Don't tell me that you remember
It
the
was
last
trivia.
time.
It was trivia that wasn't good enough for me to write down,
Okay.
but I remember reading.
Sure, okay.
He notes that there's enough planted to sustain the colony, but they've not really done anything else.
Yeah, but why would they? Surely if you've got like sort of 10, 15 people or 45 people in that particular colony.
Because I think the idea is it wouldn't be enough work to keep them busy. Just growing enough vegetables to live on. It's not a full-time job for however many people there are.
But why do you need a full-time job?
Well, what else are they going to do with their time? What have they been doing? They're a colony.
Talk, read, write poetry, something cultural.
But their mission was to cultivate the planet. And they've not done it. All they've done is do enough to keep themselves alive.
The
bare minimum.
Fair enough, but they've been sent down.
Some people like that.
Yeah, they've been sent down to a planet where they're getting exposed to all these rays, and it's why have you not built skyscrapers yet?
Yeah. Oh, you're living in a hut.
So there's 45 of us.
We haven't evolved.
If we were put in it, we'd be dead within days.
Yeah. It's like Khan and his planet.
Yeah.
Whatever he's up to. Who knows? Nobody will ever know.
McCoy then communicates with an urgent request to get back to the farmhouse to witness something for himself.
Well, Kirk, I think at this point he's got a marble rolling. He talks about jigsaw pieces that don't quite fit, so he's aware that there's an issue here. Something's up.
In the farmhouse, McCoy has been reviewing Elias's medical records and discovered that he had what?
Appendectomy. I've had that.
That's it, have you?
Yeah. Twice.
What? How can you have it twice? That's the operation.
Yeah, I've had the operation twice.
How can you? I thought you take it out and that's it. You have it once.
Yeah. The first time they went in, they decided just to leave it. And then a year later, it burst.
So it's not. That's not. You've not had the.
Yeah, I didn't have the appendectomy, but they started the operation and then.
You may as well when you're in there.
That's what I thought.
You don't need it.
I mean, I was only 12 at the time, and I thought, just do it. Why did you not just do it? And then it went a year or two later. Yeah.
Oh, that's nonsense.
Exactly. I'm still furious.
And Elias also had some other ailments on Earth. However,
scar tissue on his lungs, but it's all healed up.
Yeah, he's now in perfect health, but he's got no missing. His appendix is back.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything, but it's back.
Yeah.
Cows use their appendix.
Do they? What for?
Processing the grass that they eat.
All right, in their 12 stomachs. McCoy was quite diligent. He even checked the readings on himself because he knows he's got certain problems, and it accurately picked up his missing tonsils and other notable bits and bobs. So the readings are fine. The machine's fine.
Yes, it's not a software error or hardware error.
In the field, Layla watches on with a smile as Spock uses his tricorder on some planets, but he finds no life form, not even any insects.
No, not even other inferior life forms like women. As he starts to drop casually sexist remarks like he's never understood the female capacity to avoid directly answering questions. Yeah,
but she responds by saying that she never understood him until now. He was detached and put up an emotional shield. He doesn't argue with us.
Well, that's fair enough, but she promises to explain to him how they're still alive if he agrees to try and understand their community.
Yeah.
He's not really up for that because it sounds emotional.
Well, he says that emotions are alien to him, but she doesn't accept this and tells him his crewmates might believe it, but that she doesn't. So again, I like this. This is, we've always assumed that what Spock has told us, what we've seen, is accurate.
Yeah, he might be an unreliable narrator in terms of his own emotional capacity. She obviously feels something from him.
Yeah, so she holds out her hand and tells him to come with her. And he doesn't take it, but it does follow.
Okay.
So he's not arguing with this. He's not putting up a fight or, how you would expect
He's
him.
not resisting.
He's not resisting, yeah.
Back at the drawing board, or in the drawing room where Kirk is, he has new orders from Starfleet.
Yes, they have to evacuate the planet, and Elias is to round up his people within the hour. That's an
That's
hour.
harsh, yeah.
Very harsh.
Well,
They've lived there for 4 years.
there's a reason for it, obviously. There's unusual medical records and strange lack of animals. And
Yeah, but there doesn't seem to be any imminent danger or threat.
well, there is Berthold rays that are killing
No,
everybody.
they've got a week, we're told.
The new people have a week. The people who've
Yeah.
been there for 4 years don't have a week.
Of course
They've
they
already
do.
had a lethal exposure.
Precisely. So another few hours or days isn't going to make any difference to them.
Starfleet obviously thinks otherwise.
They're wrong.
Anyway, Kirk is under orders, so it's not his fault this time.
Yeah, he doesn't apologise. It doesn't
No,
say
I think he
sorry.
agrees with this decision.
Yeah.
He's probably asked them to do this, but we don't see that exchange.
Elias flatly refuses and insists that, as I just said, there are no danger from this radiation. He even points out that McCoy's own readings support this.
Yeah, but he doesn't engage with a question about the dead animals.
Yeah, he only says that Kirk is focusing on unimportant matters and they won't leave.
Out in the pasture, Layla and Spock are wandering.
Yeah, she is being vague about what has been going on, and it feels like there's a missing scene here. As she talks of something giving peace and love and happiness, then he responds by saying, yeah, it's like a happiness pill, which she
He's
should
talking
not
about
believe in as a...
antidepressants. Is he talking about antidepressants?
Well, any sort of, it could be it could be ecstasy, it could be any sort of drug that makes you feel...
He says there's no such thing, but it's well known that there's mood-altering drugs.
Of course.
So what's he talking about?
That's what I'm saying. I think, I don't know, it felt to me that as if there was something missing here. Because we just went from having no idea about what's going on to him talking about a pill, some thing that's creating this.
Who knows? Anyway, they come upon these odd-looking plants, and one of them assaults Spock violently.
Yeah, right in the face.
And it makes a nice sort of sucker noise as it does it. It's like,
Yeah.
got you.
It causes him to fall to the ground in pain, even though she says it shouldn't hurt. I think she's surprised.
Yeah.
She led him there.
I don't think it's the spores that have hurt him. I think it's the emotional release he's having. So
Yeah.
suddenly he's got to deal with these emotions that he had been suppressing.
Yes, he's shouting, no, please, no, I can't do this.
We saw this before in Naked Time,
Did we?
when he had the virus and he had the emotional outbursts
Ah, yeah, that's true.
right back at the start of the series.
However, in an instance, the discomfort ends, and with the flute tune that has accompanied Layla, he sits up with
Do you not recognise the flute tune that's accompanied Layla?
No, what?
It's Ruth's theme from Shore Leave.
Ah, right, yes. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's used quite a lot in this episode.
it is very much so, yeah. He sits up with an unsure expression on his face.
Yeah, she welcomes him to the group and he says that he loves her, but then he kind of corrects himself to say he can love her. So he has the capacity to love her. Whether he's going to remains to be determined.
Well, I think he might, because...
Unless that means he's allowing himself to love her.
I think so, yeah.
It's more like, yes, I always had feelings for you, now I'm going to allow myself to act upon these feelings. I think that's probably a better interpretation of what he's saying. than
Yeah,
what I
because
said.
they passionately kiss as the scene ends.
Yeah, well, you would if you were him,
Would you?
given the opportunity.
Okay.
Well, he's no longer having to adhere to the
He's had,
self-regulation.
he's had a lot bottled up for a number of years,
Yeah.
so it could be quite a night. We get a supplemental captain's logs, just a recap.
Confirms the orders from Starfleet, but the refusal of the colony to go along with it.
Back in the farmhouse, Kirk and McCoy follow Elias outside as he again tells them that he will not be complying with the evacuation order.
McCoy's his usual helpful self, suggesting that Kirk gets a butterfly net to catch him. And Sulu repeats his report about the lack of animals.
I also liked Elias's attitude here. Kirk tries to get firm with him and says that he will carry out these orders with or without his help. And Elias tells them that he thinks it will be without his help then.
Yeah. Spock and DeSalle are missing, and there is ominous news about DeSalle, given what we've seen.
Yeah.
He was away to investigate a native plant that he had found. Sulu's ordered at this point to organise landing parties to carry out the evacuation, and Kirk tries to get hold of Spock.
But he's having no luck, and we can see why. Because outside, he is lying on Layla's lap, wearing overalls now.
He's changed into, yes, cult clothing.
Yeah, and he is talking about the beauty of clouds and rainbows whilst ignoring his discarded communicator.
Yes, he tells Layla that he's seen dragons, and explains to her that he had always understood how a rainbow was formed, but had never allowed himself to appreciate its beauty before.
Yeah, he continues to ignore the beeping communicator, preferring to again kiss Layla. Now, this very much reminded me of James Bond.
Yes, when he's getting...
Yeah, it's always Bond, and you see him either at the end of a movie or at the start. He's always got some girl in tow, and Q's trying to get through to him for a mission or to find out if he's safe, and he just drops that to the ground and focuses on the female.
Yes, for a brief period. Anyhow, Layla takes this into her own hands. She answers the chirping communicator for Spock and holds it near his face.
Yes, and in between a mouthful of lips, he asks Kirk what he wants and declines to tell him where he is with a little giggle.
Yes, he drops the communicator without closing the channel and gets back to kissing Layla. Kisses obviously being TV substitutes for other activities, I would imagine.
Looks that way, yeah. Kirk then reminds a defensive McCoy that he always wanted a softer Spock.
Yeah, Kirk's taking this in his stride at this stage, but McCoy's concerned. He doesn't trust Spock's newfound joy.
No, and he's told to take over the landing party duties and to get in touch with DeSalle, as Kirk himself goes off to try and find his friend.
Yes, he thinks he can use the communicator to track him down.
Yeah, so in the woods.
Spock's hanging from a tree.
He is.
It's an unscripted moment that the director threw together at the last minute, apparently.
Okay. I think Kirk, Sulu and Kelowitz find him in this situation.
Yeah, and Kirk shoots him. Meanwhile,
at a clearing,
DeSalle has the spore plants and shows them to McCoy. I wonder what's going to happen there.
Well, what does happen?
Yeah, McCoy is spored.
Back in the woods, Spock and Layla are approached by Kirk and the others, who are really quite confused by his playful manner and complete disregard for orders.
Yeah, he says he just didn't want to come back, and that's why he didn't respond to the orders he'd been given.
So Kirk places him under arrest. So he takes Layla's hand and tells him to follow him.
Yes, so Sulu, Kirk and Kelowitz are then faced with the spore plants, which spit at the three of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kirk doesn't get much of the blast.
No. The other two have got it full force, and I think, is it Sulu immediately sides with Spock and claims that they can't leave the colony.
Yes, Kirk is unaffected and leaves the group at this stage.
Yeah, I think they laugh at him.
Yeah, he's concerned about the effect of these plants, but he's keen to carry on with the evacuation. And once he's gone, Spock notes to the others that he may be a problem.
Back to the clearing. Kirk returns to find that McCoy now appears to have had a change of attitude, one that is mirrored by Uhura aboard the Enterprise.
Hiya, Jimmy boy. Hey, I've taken care of everything. Now all y'all got to do is just relax. Doctor's orders.
How many of those did you beam up?
Oh, must be might nigh on to 100 by now.
Hey, Doc, I'm ready to energize. Everything okay with those plants?
This is the captain. Beam me up.
Well, sure, if you want.
I most certainly do. Energize. Lieutenant, put me through to Admiral Comac at Starfleet.
Oh, I'm sorry, Captain. I can't do that.
What do you mean you can't do that? Follow standard procedure. That's an order.
Oh, I know it is, Captain. But you see, all communications are out.
Out?
I short-circuited them. Except for ship-to-surface, we'll need that for a while. It's really for the best, Captain.
Kirk's not happy with this.
No, you wouldn't be.
He launches a spore plant that's sitting there across the bridge.
And in the corridor, the confused and angry Kirk now comes across a queue of crew
Say that quickly.
waiting to transport down to join the colony. He orders them back to their stations and classes it as a mutiny when they refuse.
They don't dispute that, but they're leaving anyway.
Captain's log 3417.5.
Yeah, the spores have been spread through the ship, he says, using the ventilation system, and the crew is now deserting to join the colony. He doesn't know why it's not affected him, but Dr. McCoy's not really interested in helping him figure it out.
No. On the bridge, he communicates down to the now, I think it's a southern gent, McCoy.
Yeah, well, the spores have relaxed him to the extent his natural accent has come out.
I like this.
He's a Georgia boy.
He tells Jim Boy everything is perfect down there and it doesn't require an explanation.
Yeah, just relax, have a mint julep. You know
Accept it.
what's in a mint julep?
I'm not sure, no.
So it's bourbon, mint, sugar,
Yep.
crushed ice. You can use water. I think crushed ice would be plenty.
Okay.
And then a sprig of mint on the top. Sounds great. Good, actually. I think,
Back in the day, I would have had one of those, no problem.
In the farmhouse, Spock and Elias Sandoval are discussing the arrival of almost everybody from the ship.
Yeah, Kirk enters and asks where McCoy is.
He's away making his julep.
Yeah. Elias then invites him to join them, but Kirk is more interested in the origins of the plants, and Spock tells him that they have drifted through space before landing here. How does he know this?
He doesn't.
Making it up?
Well, unless the spores are able to communicate once they're in you.
No.
Who knows? I think that actually was a rejected earlier version of the story. But yes, he says that the spores thrive on these Berthold rays, so obviously they found a planet that's exposed to them. And because of them, this has become a true Eden, he says.
Elias then tells them that it gives you health and peacefulness, but Kirk finds it hard to accept that this is paradise. I mean, I don't know. That's just where I'm on the fence.
Well, he refers to the colony in similar terms to the way that he referred to the planet last week. He says there's no ambition, no desire to advance. It's not a living society.
No, but that's not a definition of what paradise is. You don't have to want to advance. It's a very, I don't know.
Well, he rejects that it is a paradise. He says he wouldn't enjoy this. This is not paradise for him.
Yeah, bro, you don't have to. Leave us. We'll do it. I mean, having excellent health, and I mean, it's almost a definition of what a paradise might be. You've got complete and health.
No need to maintain it.
And peacefulness. I mean, what else do you want? Everything else is sort of material, wealth and beauty and all that sort of stuff. But if you're healthy and happy, I mean, those are the two sort of tenets.
Well, he's saying he wouldn't be happy though.
Who?
Kirk.
Yeah.
So it's not a paradise to him.
That's fine. Beat it.
And he rejects the idea that it could be paradise for anybody else.
Well, see, that's where I've got a problem.
There's no desire for people to better themselves. There's no challenge. And he leaves, or at least he says he's going back to the ship, and is told by Spock that he'll come around. Somehow he does get back to the ship, so presumably not everybody had left by that point. But he is now alone. He tries to contact Scotty, who doesn't reply, security, a couple of other departments. I think he's the only individual left aboard. Yeah,
and we see a live captain's log, I think for the first time, 3417.7.
Yeah, and we've seen ones before where you hear him doing a voiceover while you see him doing other things. We've not seen him, well, maybe in his quarters. I don't remember much in terms of live captain's logs. It's very exciting.
He's now a sort of partially resigned captain who notes that there has been a mutiny and Ahura has sabotaged communications so that he can only speak directly to the planet. And he cannot pilot the ship on his own. So in effect, he's trapped, he's stuck in orbit alone.
Yeah, for now, until the orbit decays.
In a hopeless tone, he goes on to remark at how large the ship really is.
Yeah, it's quiet.
Yeah, and admits that he doesn't know what he can do or what he can offer to get his crew back.
At this point, the plant that he earlier threw across the bridge jumps up and spores him.
Right in the face.
Right in the face. And he contacts Spock. I wasn't sure initially if he was bluffing at this point, but I think we can accept he's not, given what happens later.
Yeah. Yeah, with a grin on his face, he communicates down to him, telling Spock that he has decided to join them. And he just has to pack a few things and he'll be right there.
In his quarters, he is packing in a old school 20th century suitcase.
Very old school, yes, quite like it. And he then opens a safe to view a medal that is clearly important to him. I don't know what this is.
I'm not sure which medal it is, but obviously it reminds him of something that wipes the smile off his face.
Yes, and he snaps the case closed, suggesting that he's made a decision or changed his mind.
Or at least is on that path. Mm-hmm. Because when he gets to the transporter room, we can see he's fighting an internal battle against these spores.
Yeah, he's trying to fight this urge. And he shouts no, and then he has an epiphany. Violent emotions are required.
To end the influence of the spores, yes, and he immediately records a supplemental log.
Yeah, stating that he thinks he has the answer, but there is a risk due to Spock's arousal, as we heard.
Yes, at the top of the show, Spock can be hard to beat when he's aroused.
He puts his plan into action by communicating down to Spock and telling him that he needs some help bringing some equipment down. And so, after kissing Layla goodbye, Spock sets off for the Enterprise, where he materialises and is immediately met by a racist bat-wielding captain.
All right, you mutinous, disloyal, computerized half-breed. We'll see about you deserting my ship.
The term half-breed is somewhat applicable, but computerized is inaccurate. A machine can be computerized, not a man.
What makes you think you're a man? You're an overgrown jackrabbit, an elf with a hyperactive thyroid.
Ship. I don't understand.
Of course you don't understand. You don't have the brains to understand. All you have is printed circuits.
Captain, if you'll excuse me.
What can you expect from a simpering, devil-eared freak whose father was a computer and his mother an encyclopedia?
My mother was a teacher. My father, an ambassador.
Your father was a computer, like his son. An ambassador from a planet of traitors. The Vulcan never lived who had an ounce of integrity.
Captain, please don't.
You're a traitor from a race of traitors. Disloyal to the core. Rotten like the rest of your subhuman race. And you've got the gall to make love to that girl.
That's enough.
Does she know what she's getting, Spock? A carcass full of memory banks who should be squatting on a mushroom instead of passing himself off as a man. You belong in a circus, Spock, not a starship. Right next to the dog-faced boy.
Do you think Spock would get that last reference? Surely by that stage circuses are a thing of the distant past on a different planet from his.
That's true. But if Kirk knows about it...
Yeah, why would Kirk even know about it?
Yeah.
I barely got the reference to a dog-faced boy.
Those insults... firstly, I thought that scene was brilliant. It was amusing. It was fun. The insults reminded me very much of a Charles Bronson movie called Murphy's Law.
Was Jill Ireland in it?
No, but I'm sure we'll discuss this later. No, it was a female sidekick who was the most obnoxious character and one of the most in movie history. If anyone has ever seen it, if you haven't, go and watch it. Murphy's Law. He's thrown together with this. He's a cop and she's some sort of low-level criminal, and they're handcuffed together, but they don't like each other. And all she does is insult people, and it's brilliantly terrible.
Okay.
Murphy's Law.
Put on your long list of terrible movies that you love.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Spock and Kirk get into it after this debate, and...
No, they don't. Two stuntmen do.
Well, they look just like Spock and Kirk.
They look nothing like Spock. I mean, it's...
The director was aware of this. He wanted to film it from a wider shot, but the room was too wee.
Really?
Yeah.
You see, the thing is as well, there's not much stunt work going on. This isn't like The Bourne Identity or modern James Bond or John Wick, right? This is really quite lo-fi.
They could have done it themselves.
They could have, slow punches and a bit of rolling around. I don't think you need to be a trained stuntman to carry this off.
Yeah. Anyhow, the two of them get into it, and when Spock gets angry enough, the effect of the spores wears off, and he seems quite sad.
Yes, he now accepts that he doesn't belong down there, but isn't convinced instigating a mass brawl on the planet is the best way to sort things out.
Kirk disagrees.
No, I think he does. I think he agrees. He's another idea.
But his other idea involves starting a mass brawl on the planet, despite really irritating everybody with audio waves until they start punching.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyhow, yes. Spock asks to be sent to the brig at this point.
Does he?
Punching the captain.
Yes.
And Kirk says, but I also punched you, and if we're both in the brig, who's going to build this transmitter?
Yeah.
Spock sees the logic.
With a smile.
Yeah. Down in a field.
The clearing, yes. Southern McCoy approaches Layla, who is waiting for Spock to return with Kirk.
He doesn't try his I'm a friend of Kirk line.
No.
But he does imply that he's a friend of Kirk by pulling out his communicator and getting in touch with the Enterprise.
Yes, he hands it to her so that she can talk to Spock. And it's a bit awkward as she wants to beam up, and he obviously still has some sort of feelings for her as he tells her to wait where she is and he'll bring her aboard.
Yeah, she hasn't quite twigged that she's lost him at this point.
No.
He heads down to the transporter room anyway to beam her up.
Yeah, she arrives and immediately runs to embrace him, but realises straight away that he is no longer with them.
And the trauma of that, I think, releases the spores grip on her as well.
Well, she begs him to come back with her and breaks down in tears when he says that he can't.
I love you. I said that 6 years ago, and I can't seem to stop repeating myself. On Earth, you couldn't give anything of yourself. You couldn't even put your arms around me. We couldn't have anything together there. We couldn't have anything together anyplace else. But we're happy here. I can't lose you now, Mr. Spock. I can't.
I have a responsibility to this ship. To that man on the bridge. I am what I am, Layla. And if there are self-made purgatories, then we all have to live in them. Mine can be no worse than someone else's.
I have lost you, haven't I? And not only you. I've lost all of it. The spores. I've lost them too.
The captain discovered that strong emotions and needs destroy the spore influence.
And this is for my good? Do you mind if I say I still love you?
That was quite a sad and romantic, but
I think Spock, you can see, still feels for her. He comforts her. He's not so cold that he just rejects her out of hand here.
definitely, and that, that shows that it wasn't simply because he was under the effect of these spores.
No, he didn't. Well, I think we saw that when he initially came under the effect of the spores. He did have feelings for her. He just was suppressing them.
Yeah.
Up on the bridge, Spock and Kirk have a quick chuckle about what's going to happen.
Well, before we get to the bridge, we need to mention she asked about his name.
Oh, sorry, I didn't even realise that you hadn't put that in the clip.
Yeah.
Yeah, she asks what his other name is, and we've learned that he does have one, but you wouldn't be able to pronounce it.
But that's not the point. If I asked someone, say, who had a Japanese name or a Chinese name, and they said to me, "Oh, you couldn't pronounce it," I'd say, "Yeah, it's fine, but I can listen to it. So tell me."
You never hear any Vulcans having another name.
Okay.
I don't think. Mr. Spock, that's his name.
Fair enough.
To differentiate himself from the Doctor. Anyhow, up on the bridge, Spock and Kirk have a quick chuckle about what they're about to do.
Yeah.
Before turning on the
Is it a bridge or is it engineering?
I thought it was the bridge. Was it engineering?
Who knows? They're messing about with some equipment.
Yeah. Down in the field, fights start to break out, including ones with Sulu and Desal. Desal,
yeah. As well as McCoy and the other crew members.
Well, McCoy picks a fight with Sandoval because he tries to reassign him. They don't need doctors, they're all too healthy. McCoy's not having that.
Yeah, this is a little later. McCoy's sitting under a tree. Is he chewing a bit of straw? And he says, "Yeah, you don't need to be everyone's in perfect health, so we've no need for doctors.
You'll be doing something else."
Yeah.
He's like, "No."
And I think he says that he might not need a doctor, but he'll show you how I can put you in a hospital.
Yes, and he thumps him.
Yeah.
And then apologises immediately as Sandoval is also released from the grip of the spores.
Yes, that's one punch apparently awakens him. Because
it's not the punch, it's the violent emotions.
Yes, I'm saying. So one punch.
The punch is just the manifestation of the emotions.
Yeah, but that's all it took. Cause you were so the violent.
Yes, it made Sandoval so angry to be punched.
Yeah.
That he immediately lost. But then perhaps the longer you've had them, the easier it is to Who knows?
Maybe. Yeah, he apparently realises that they've made no progress.
His whole life has been wasted for 4 years, but at least they've not died.
No. And he agrees with McCoy that they can't remain there.
Justifying Starfleet's decision.
I don't know.
When he's of his true mind, he agrees. Anyhow, he gets put through to Kirk on the bridge via comms and says he'll fully cooperate.
Yeah, a smug Kirk takes this call where he's told there'll be no fight against the extradition. Up on the bridge.
Everyone's back.
They are. McCoy appears beside Kirk and Spock to tell them that all the colonists are in perfect health, a benefit left over from the spores.
Do you think Scotty grew his finger back?
What finger?
He's got a missing finger.
Ah, okay, yes.
We saw it in an earlier episode.
We did. But he wasn't there.
Yeah, he was. Kirk tried to communicate with him and he wasn't on the ship anymore.
That's true.
But maybe he wasn't there long enough.
Yeah, finger growing isn't a thing, isn't it? Is it?
Well, appendix growing isn't a thing.
Yeah, but maybe it takes a long time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maybe it's not had time. We don't know.
No.
We'll find out in the future.
We will.
McCoy talks about man being thrown. He always gets quite biblical when he's had an experience, doesn't he?
Yeah, I wasn't particularly happy with this part, but anyway.
Kirk just reiterates his point about, no, we walked out because we have to claw and scratch, and basically Shatnerises it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we see Omicron disappear on the screen into the distance as we have this patter.
Yes, and Spock is then asked for his thoughts.
What does he say?
He says that he doesn't have much to say, but ruefully reflects that for once in his life, and I think this is an exaggeration, but for once in his life he felt happy.
Yeah, it's quite a sad existence. Now, that's why I've got an issue. So Spock is not under these spores, and he says he's always unhappy.
No, he doesn't say he's always unhappy. He's just has neither happiness nor unhappiness.
Okay. So these spores helped. It's like today saying that if you can take pills for, antidepressants.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's not how you really think. Well, maybe not. So what's the problem with that?
But then, we've seen Spock be happy before. We've seen him laugh at jokes. We've seen him...
No, that's not being happy. You can be really unhappy about something. Someone tells you a joke or something funny happens, and for that moment you find it amusing, but you're not.
We've seen him holding his phaser rifle.
He's happy. Yeah, when he can kill, when there's a chance of killing someone with a big gun, then yes. But again, that's only fleeting. It's only when you're doing that.
It's not a state of contentment.
No,
so it's maybe not so much happiness as contentment that he's missing.
Yeah. So I do have a problem. I'm not sure.
Well, that was going to be my first question. Do you think it was fair to cure them? You're torn.
No, I am torn. I think the best solution would be to restore them through this anger, to then allow them to make their own decision.
Would you feel differently if the spores had to be injected against the person's will initially?
Yes.
Would that change it?
Yes.
So the fact that the spores were spat in their face, even though the people were being led to the spores knowingly by the people who are infecting them.
Yeah. See, I don't have a problem with them making a decision based on all the facts. What I do have a problem with is the implementation of their strategy. You can't just go down and say within an hour, everyone up. Spend a bit of time, explain. It's like I say, if it's someone, it's equivalent of just deciding that, we're going to remove your antidepressants, the medication that you're on that makes you feel this way. We'll just go, take it away, cold turkey, deal with it.
You know, I like to make these stories richer in my own mind. The way that I would have done this story is this paradise that these people lived in would only look like paradise when you've been exposed to the spores, and to everyone else it would look like some sort of hellhole, like everything looks burned out or trampled or whatever, and it would almost be like a metaphor for maybe heroin addiction or something like that. So when you're on the drug, everything seems fine, you don't have a problem, you live, but to other people who are not, it looks like you're in squalor.
Sure.
And then, is it fair to take you out of this?
But I think they could have certainly worked it that way. But
that's not what they did do. But that's how I would have maybe turned this story.
Sure, but but I think my comparison is more accurate then, or more, because I would compare it rather than to heroin addiction, where it is squalor, to say no, this is people who are on antidepressants, because they're not living in squalor.
But then when they're no longer affected by the spores, they choose not to live there anymore.
Apparently, they didn't really think about it themselves, did they?
Well, Sandoval does. He says we've achieved nothing. We need to leave.
After a second. Take a bit of time to think about it. It's all very well saying that just now. Then you go back up in that ship and see after 2 weeks, you're like, do you know what?
But they can go to another planet. They can start a new colony. They can build without being exposed to lethal Berthold rays.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I think that that you're putting too much, or not you, but what they've done is put too much emphasis on what they think paradise should be, and it should be about. It feels quite it feels almost quite a capitalist approach. If you're not creating, if you're not developing,
not contributing.
Maybe some people, some societies, it is. If you're a Buddhist or whatever, you don't have to be doing that.
Well, maybe that is the metaphor then that's intended. Is this an attack on communism?
Potentially.
So these are communists here, and once they're disabused of that notion, they realise they don't want that life.
It could be potentially that, but if you look at it from a religious point of view, like something like Buddhist, where you're not trying to, you're just living and you're quite content. Contentment doesn't have to be. And I'm not saying every society it'd be better if everyone was like that, but it's, you can have communities like a Buddhist, which these people are quite happy and content to. Working a little bit of land, or the Amish or whatever it is, they don't have to be trying always to be developing technologically and everything else. Just be satisfied, be happy, and let them go on with it. So, I've got issues with how they implemented their strategy.
Do you think that Spock was the most affected by this? Events of the story?
I think without a doubt he was the most long-term emotional impact. Yeah.
Should we go on with some trivia? Do you have anything else?
On you go.
Okay, so original air date 2nd of March 1967, directed by Ralph Sinensky, the first of his 6 Star Trek episodes. He was quite a prolific director. He helmed the episodes of many shows, including Ironside, The Waltons, Dynasty. And he's now 97, as far as I know, still alive. And he was blogging as recently as 2010.
Blogging?
If you search for Ralph's Trek, he's got things up there. And there's done interviews about working on Star Trek. There's quite a lot online about him, so he's a guy worth looking up.
Sure.
Dorothy Fontana, who we've previously heard about, and Jerry Soule, who we've also previously heard about, take the writing credits for this. And well, Soule doesn't take the writing credits. He insisted on being credited as Nathan Butler, so displeased with Fontana's revisions to his story and his script.
Okay.
We talked about him back in episode 10 when we discussed the Corbomite Maneuver, which he did take credit for, and he's got one more episode to come in the future. Jill Ireland played Layla. Her second husband, Charles Bronson, was apparently regularly on set with her during the filming of this episode, despite the fact she was still married to her first husband at the time.
David McCallum.
She also appeared in a number of Bronson movies.
Wow, yeah, there's no sort of nepotism here, is there? Just about every single movie that she's been in starred Charles Bronson.
Sure, I'm sure she was... 2, one of your favourites?
Yeah, good, yeah. Not because of her. I'm sure she was always definitely the best person for the job.
She was in The Mechanic, and she was in Assassination, lots of others. And apparently she claimed that no other actress was willing to work with him.
Yeah, sure.
Anyhow, she remained married to him until her untimely and sad death from breast cancer at the age of 54 in 1990. Frank Overton's the only other guy I really want to talk about. He played Sandoval. This was his only Star Trek appearance because he died shortly after the episode broadcast. It was filmed in January of 67, broadcast, as I said, in, I think, March of 67, and he died in May of 67 at the age of just 49 from a heart attack. He also appeared in multiple episodes of The Twilight Zone, and perhaps most memorably he was in To Kill a Mockingbird.
Do you say 49?
Yeah.
Oh,
well, he was famously cast as older characters. I think he looked older.
Yeah.
That was his thing. But then it was everybody's thing, as we've noticed in previous episodes. No Columbo connection this week, apart from Shatner and Nimoy. I couldn't find anything even. Apart from Charles Bronson, obviously, who was in all the Columbos.
Well, he was the first choice for Columbo, yeah.
Yeah. That would have been a different show, wouldn't it?
Just one more thing.
Just one more. Originally, this story was written for Sulu, not Spock. It was Fontana who turned it around to be a Spock story, which I think worked well.
Very good decision.
But obviously not to the pleasure of Jerry Soule.
No.
The next episode, Devil in the Dark, was scheduled to film before this one, but they were switched because that one was thought to be a tough assignment for a new director. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. A lot of the music, as I mentioned during the podcast, from Shore Leave is reused here. And in terms of international titles, only a couple vary from a direct translation. The Germans go for Falsche Paradies, False Paradise, or Fake Paradise, depending how you translate it. And our Japanese friends, Shi no Rakuan, Deadly Paradise.
Yeah.
It's not deadly, they get cured.
Could be deadly.
Well, it's theoretically deadly. Unless you're an animal, in which case it was very deadly. Anyhow, this feature will be better next week, I promise.
You promise?
Yes.
When we hold you to that.
Yes, when we talk about episode 25, as I've said before, The Devil in the Dark. And in the meantime, We'll be on social media at Trek Podcast, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. You can get hold of us for chat or whatever. And if you want to talk about this episode of either the podcast or of Star Trek, there's a post up at StarTrekPodcast.com where you can give us all your reminiscences.
Let's get going. I want to watch the snooker.
Right, okay, well, we'll see folk in 7 days' time.
Cheerio.
Bye bye.